productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
Welcome to the Business Mechanic Show. This is your host, Vaughn Sigmund, founder of Results-Driven Leadership, where we provide you and your managers the knowledge, skills, and tools to develop from manager to leader. To start today's show, let me ask, who's running you? Are you running things, or is your job or business running you? Well, if you are one of many managers or executives who feel overwhelmed, and at times maybe you go home at the end of the day feeling like you got nothing done. Do you ever feel like your phone rings all day, every day? You get question after question after question all day. You're fighting fires. You're often frustrated because it seems like you're the only person who can get things done around here. Or maybe it even feels like your career's starting to stall. Well, this podcast is for you. Because, my friends, you are not alone. You are not alone at all. Whether you said yes to one or all of those questions during this show, I want to share with you all I know about creating healthy and productive delegation skills. These are likely the cure to your situation, your frustration, your stress, your feeling of being overloaded and overworked all the time. So first, let's start with some facts. There's only a limited amount that you can get done no matter how hard you work. After all, you can only work so many hours in a day, and there are only so many people you can help. And because the numbers of people you can help is limited, your success is limited. However, the better you are at your job, the more people will expect from you. And this will lead to undue pressure often, work overload, and you have to understand you can't do everything everyone wants or needs you to do. And this is very often where this stress is coming from, where you may be unhappy with your job. You're starting to burn out, and you have a feeling of diminished capacity or even diminished motivation. And one of the most common ways of overcoming this burden, this situation, is to learn how to delegate your work to others. Sounds simple. Because good delegators can build solid, successful teams that are more capable of meeting the demands of a heavy workload. This is why delegation is one of the essential skills to become a more effective leader you have to learn. You see, there's always a win-win when it comes to delegation. As you improve your skill sets and begin delegating things to others, you benefit, and the others benefit because they're being developed. And this creates a scenario of well-rounded teams with more empowerment, more confidence, and a more motivated and less stressed you. I know you would love to have that feeling like, wow, I got a ton done today. Oh, I'm going home and I'm a whole lot happier. I'm not burnt out every day. And you'd love to go through your day with less distractions and surprises and hand grenades come flying in the door. That's no fun. So let's get to it. First, let's talk about some of the reasons why many people, maybe you, are not delegating. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why people might be afraid, managers might be afraid of handing over tasks or responsibilities. One of those is you're just worried, you have empathy, you have concern, that you're worried about dumping too much work on others because they're already busy. Well, just because something is usually a manager's job doesn't mean it can't be done by others, unless it's a very specific role. You're not going to delegate, giving raises or payroll to somebody. Of course, that's a no-brainer. What's important is that the work is completed, not who does the work. And even if you have team members that appear to be really busy all day, every day, it's pretty worthwhile to start checking in on what they're busy with, because appearances can be a little fooling, because they could be working on very low priority work, in which case their workload could be rearranged to carry out some of these delegated tasks you'd like to give them. Or very often, it's where Parkinson's law kicks in. What's Parkinson's law? Simply stated, it's the job expands to the time allotted. Meaning, in this case, they may appear to be busy, but are they? And without concrete understanding, without concrete guidance, timeline expectations, SMART goals, they may be filling the day at a pace that works fine for them, but keeps you fooled into thinking there is nothing more they can possibly take on. They may have created this illusion. And we have to be careful of mistaking busyness for achievement. Busyness for achievement. Delegation is not trying to make more work for your team, but to distribute the work more efficiently so that tasks get allocated according to each individual's skills and workloads. And if your team members understand this, they're going to be happy to contribute to the team effort. So think about that. Next, there are some individuals in management positions that may feel threatened, that there's a risk to them if they delegate. And when you consider delegating, you got to understand you will not be handing over your entire job, just specific tasks, specific responsibilities, and it's entirely up to you as to which ones you hand over. And even if you delegate several tasks, your job's not going to become redundant. They're not going to outshine you. You're still going to play an essential role in supporting and guiding your team, and will always remain ultimately responsible for the work. And why worry about someone else doing a task better than you? That's actually a compliment to you. If they can do it well, all the more reason for giving it to them. Set your worrisome ego aside and let's get real. They are unlikely to make you look bad by doing a good job. You win because your team is good, not because you as an individual are great at performing some task. You're a manager now. Make your team better by expanding their horizons. And the aim is to make your team more efficient, more effective, and to give others opportunities to use their skills and to develop their careers. So consider that. They're never going to outshine you. They're going to make you look great, better, more effective, the more you can delegate to them. Now we're getting into one of the areas that many people suffer the most from. And that is their unwillingness to give up control. When work is handed over to others, you have to understand it's going to take time for them to learn to do it at the same level that you can. And yes, things will take longer, and maybe the quality will be reduced. But this is almost always a temporary thing, because with practice, they are going to improve. That is how we learn and improve our competence, is by doing something over and over again and getting better and faster at it. And hell no, in the beginning, they won't be able to do it as fast as you. Get over it. This is a process. You've been doing it a long time and are highly competent at it. However, if you give them support and guidance and patience, that will all quickly help you overcome this hurdle of giving up control. Never in my life have I ever gotten anything good that came quickly. So don't give in to your urgency, your keen sense of responsibility, your action orientation, and only you can do it. And give the person you delegate to a little time, just a little time, and understanding that it's going to take a little while for them to get better. And underlying all this is you have to understand that different people learn at different paces, and most will not learn the way and at the same pace as you did. They just won't. Everybody's different. And if you don't lose patience and think that you taking it back is going to be quicker, you're undoing yourself. You're making your life harder. Everyone takes time to learn something new. You did too. You're just unconsciously competent at it. The more support, whomever you're delegating something to, the more support you're given at the outset of all this, the more quickly they will be able to do the work themselves independently and expeditiously. When delegating work, you should ensure that you give clear instructions and provide plenty of check-ins, giving them praise, giving them developmental feedback, encouragement, reassurance to build their confidence. And you may have convinced yourself it seems like a lot more work than it's worth to delegate things. It's just faster for me to get things done. Well, that's why you're stressed out. I'm sorry. That's why you're overworked. That's why you're frustrated. That's why you're the only person getting anything done around here. You don't let anybody else get anything done. The most significant barrier for owners, executives, managers to start delegating workload is thinking about it. Oh my God, it's an additional task. It's more work. Where am I going to find time to train somebody? And yes, it's going to slow you down a little bit, but it's temporary. It's just for a short period. This is a short-term investment for a long-term gain. So please, get over yourself, give it some patience, don't take it back, and let others do some work for you. Because you've got to get beyond putting out fires. Most organization leaders are so busy putting out day-to-day fires and handling those grenades that are thrown at them all day, that they remain stuck in a rut of doing things the way they've always been done. And that may be for better, it may be for worse. But they rarely find the needed time, and it's really about making the needed time to discover new solutions and opportunities that's going to allow them to rise to the next level of success. And by approaching your position that way, you're rarely going to be able to achieve your full potential. And whenever I encounter a manager who is permanently putting out fires, who repeatedly reschedules meetings, can't be on time to nothing, or has a hard time finding even 30 minutes to schedule important appointments, I know that person is highly ineffective at delegating. I guarantee you. Some may think that their employees are not qualified. They're not capable of doing any more than what they're currently doing. And you are likely wrong. And you won't know until you commit to some of these tips I'm giving you today. And I'm going to share some best practices in a little bit. And if you are right that your people just aren't capable of taking anything more on, maybe you've hired the wrong people. And if you become frustrated with the quality of your employees, then let me ask you, have you ever been formally trained on how to interview? Most people I ask that question answer no. And for listening to the Business Mechanics Show, I'm going to put a link in the show notes for a special free offer. Get our online course, How to Hire Great People. It'll give you video training on the interview techniques that work best. And they're techniques I'm pretty sure you're not using, that you've never even thought about using. It's going to give you instruction. It's going to give you the tools, including all the interview questions you need to hire great people. And those questions are not the questions you're asking right now, I promise you. So check it out. Take advantage of the free offer for How to Hire Great People. It's in the show notes. It's a game changer when it comes to building great teams that you're going to feel more confident to delegate to. Now, moving on. Developing good delegation skills allows you, obviously, to apply your energy and attention to what is most important, or in other words, your priorities. And your priorities are not everything. And if you can't prioritize because you're stuck in a rut, you've got to do more than your share. You are not using your time in ways that you could be to provide high-level performance and lower your stress, frankly. Most organization leaders ignore that principle. They are always functioning in overload, working many more hours than they have to, or certainly than they want to. And they often never feel like they're getting ahead. They spend too much time discussing things or fulfilling unnecessary commitments, which keeps them from focusing on what is truly important to create the success and happiness they desire. This is your roadblock. Now, the good news, as you can overcome the typical delegation obstacles that keep you from achieving results-driven outcomes. However, it's going to require a commitment to change. Now, I'm going to share with you some of the most common tools and best practices for effective delegation. Let's first talk about when you should delegate. Delegation is a force multiplier. And when done appropriately, only when it's done appropriately. However, that does not mean that you can delegate just anything, of course, like I mentioned earlier. But to determine when delegating a task is appropriate, there are 5 key questions you need to ask yourself. 5 questions. 1, is there someone else who has or can be given the necessary information or expertise to complete this task? Is this task something someone else can do? Or is it critical only you can do it? And I must say to you, the list starts shrinking of what you have to do when you think about it like this. Am I the only person who can do this? Think about that as a motivator. Do this exercise. Do you know what you make per hour? Ever think about that? Well, I suggest you do the math and know what you're being paid or paying yourself per hour, because that's important information. That's significant information when we start talking about delegation. When you are doing the work that you're so accustomed to and expeditious at completing, think about how much you are paying yourself per hour to complete it. And is that task really worth that rate of pay? That stops a lot of people in their tracks. This tip right here is often the one that propels people to finally start making some change because they haven't thought about it this way. And if it's not worth the rate of pay that you're being paid per hour, I know your salary, break it down by hour. If it doesn't live up to the level of that rate of pay, delegate it to someone else that is making a rate that's more in line with the value of that task. Or you can outsource it, but it doesn't have to be you. And now you've got some freed up time. And if you're not performing that task that a lower level pay grade should be completing, what higher value responsibilities can you be completing instead? Oh, like working on your business instead of in your business? These are your platinum activities. And you want to give yourself the time to spend as much of it as possible on platinum, high level, high impact activities. So let me give you a tip on this. For 1 week, you can do this for a week. Follow this assignment. Stop periodically during the course of the day, just for a second. And think to yourself, who else besides me could be doing this task? Who else? Am I the only person? Also ask yourself, do I even like doing this task? You may be used to doing this task, but do you like doing this task? And more importantly, is this task worthy of my time at my pay grade? Now, I've got to think about, it's not. Whom can I train to begin performing this task? And start making some notes. And by the end of the week, I assure you, you will have found many, maybe dozens of duties that you don't have to perform, that somebody else can be performing. From that, once I know what they are, you can create a strategy to begin training others, these identified people that you've thought about. You can start completing these tasks for you. And then using that list and doing it slowly, Start to prioritize what you want to start offloading onto someone else. It can't all be at once, of course. And then slowly and methodically begin training the individual or individuals you identified who can perform it, just like you. However, you got to give them time to learn and begin mastering this task. And once they're in pretty good shape, they're doing it pretty well, move on to the next task. What's the next on the list? Or who's next on the list? The warning here is don't take on delegation too quickly or you're going to fail. You're a busy person. You've got to be careful with that. Best practice number 2. Does the task provide an opportunity to grow and develop another person's skills? Think about that. And the answer is almost always yes, but it's crucial because one-off duties may not be the best thing to delegate unless there's some element that delegating this can build on something later. But try to look for recurring tasks because that's where you're really going to free up your time. Similar task, recurring task, and get those off. And you always have to keep in mind, in today's work culture, one of the top reasons employees are dissatisfied at work or outright quit, one of the number one reasons, it's cited in the top 2 or 3, is because they don't have the feeling that they're being developed. We've got a generation of learners. And if they're not growing and learning, they're going to quickly become disenfranchised, disengaged, bored, and demotivated. So this fits right into what we're talking about today. You likely have a team of people that are eager and hungry to take on more responsibility. They're not going to come up and ask you. I'm sorry, they won't. You've got to ask them. And then begin the process of training and developing them to do that. Number 3, do you have enough time to delegate this particular job or task effectively? Because let's get real. The time must be available for adequate training for the questions that need to be answered, the opportunities to check progress, and they're going to make mistakes. And so there's going to be some rework. Build that into your timeline. Managing the timeline and not waiting to the point that you're in a crunch to complete something. Yeah, that was poor delegation skills. Plan ahead, plan the time needed to train and rework, and including reworks. The time to do this will seldom present itself. You have to make the time. You have to make the time to train and delegate. But again, remember, it's a return on compounded interest. As you invest this time in someone else and taking that off your shoulders, off your plate, you're going to be getting that back in spades. And this goes back to what keeps so many managers, executives, and business owners from delegating. But I'm betting that out of a 50-hour plus work week, you can find an hour or 2 to devote to training and delegation. An hour or 2. Don't make it any bigger than it is. Getting started is the hardest part. Number 4, is this a task that I should delegate? Task critical for long-term success, for example, recruiting the right person to your team. That genuinely needs your attention. That's not a task you get to delegate. You might be able to delegate the phone screen, But the full process is probably not something, the full interview and hiring process, that's not something you can delegate, of course. And if you can answer yes, that this is a task I can delegate, it's at least worth considering delegating this to somebody else. Considering who you can give this over to. And then next, think about whom you need to delegate this to. And the factors to consider here include the experience, knowledge, and skills of the individual as they apply to this delegated task. And this is really important. Do they have some passion? Do they have some aptitude to complete the task correctly and permanently? Not permanently, at least for a while, until you promote them. What knowledge, skills, behavioral profile, what attitude does that person already have? And do you have the time and resource to provide the training, if any, that's needed? Do they have the right behavioral profile, attention to detail, communication style, ability to figure things out on their own without a bunch of direction from you? Depends on what you're delegating, but you need to be looking for those things. And it's also important to understand what their long-term goals and interests are, because this may be something very interesting to them. And they may align very well with the work you're proposing to hand over to them. Now let's talk about how you should delegate. Here are a few principles to delegating successfully. Delegate to the lowest possible organizational level. What? Think about this. The people who are closest to the work that you want to delegate, those are the ones that are best suited for the task because they have the most intimate knowledge of that everyday work. Then you have to provide adequate support, be available to answer questions, ensure that the projects or the task is being completed successfully. It's never going to be a set and forget thing. Focus on the results. You should only concern yourself with what is accomplished rather than detailing how the work should be done. Meaning, this is going to be hard for some. Your way is not necessarily the only way or even the best way to get things done. That alone fouls up a lot of managers in delegating. Allow the person you delegate it to some ownership, some authorship, and control using their own methods and processes. And by doing this facilitates respect, trust, and will lead to success. It's motivating. They'll become more committed to you. The more freedom and empowerment you give them. Don't micromanage this. Now, you need to discuss with the person that you're delegating something to. Real important. How them being successful at this will impact their future. You gotta give them the future. You gotta paint the picture, sell the sizzle. And always remember, even when things are going wrong, even if they've screwed the pooch, you have to be encouraging. You have to provide recognition of hard work and any other desirable consequences of them doing this. And please establish and maintain involvement with scheduled regular check-ins. What I normally ask people, instruct people to do is, as you delegate something, you need to check in about every hour, just a quick check-in. If it's something they're going to be spending a fair amount of time on, but check in often, early, to make sure we're progressing the right way. And as you see that they're getting it down, they're gaining confidence, they're getting it done, you can start backing off on your check-ins. Early and often, then start backing off. And for sure, keep in mind, you will find that to delegate more successfully, you need to consider all these key points before, during, and after the delegation process. Make sure the team member knows that you want them to be successful and that you need to know if any problems occur, and that it's safe, that you're not going to show any emotion if things aren't going well. You can't be brusque and dismissive if they have questions. You got to be available. You got to be able to be available to give guidance and answer questions. And be super careful not to micromanage. Now, that doesn't mean that you just need to surrender control altogether. To delegate effectively, you have to achieve a careful balance between giving enough space and empowerment for people to use their abilities, their minds, their ability to figure things out. And then you monitor it and support it at a level that's going to ensure that the job is done correctly. And when this delegated work is delivered back to you, please set enough time aside to thoroughly go through it. And it goes without saying, only accept good quality, complete work. And you don't ever want to accept work that you aren't satisfied with just because you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. You're going to have to be straight up with somebody, because they're not going to learn how to do things correctly. They'll keep giving you inadequate work. So be careful with that. You're not going to hurt their feelings if you give them developmental, encouraging feedback. And also, when there's corrections to be made, they need to make the corrections. They need to do it right. Don't get frustrated, take it back, and create a whole new tranche of work to complete yourself. Don't do that. Don't get frustrated. Why do I say that? Because I see that happen a lot. It's very common. And it's completely counter to what you're trying to accomplish. And of course, when good work is returned to you, recognize and reward that effort. As a leader, you should compliment your team members every time you're impressed by what they've done. Real important. But it's also real important that you personally set aside how you would do it. Get your ego out of the way. Sure, you did a good job. Your job was, whatever this task was. But as they do it more and more, they'll get better and better. Give them the responsibility and the empowerment, and then allow them the kinesthetic knowledge of mastery, because we learn by doing. And this effort on your part will go a long way toward building team members' self-confidence, efficiency, engagement, respect for you, trust in you. Hence, everybody wins. And let me just sneak in a very major key point here when delegating. You might want to write this one down. There are 4 tenets to teaching somebody something. If we've been taught it this way our entire lives, this is how we learn. Let me break it down into steps for you, because you can't leave these out, because often what fails in delegating and training is one of these, it's skipped. The first two are pretty commonly achieved. The last two are rarely achieved when things are going wrong. So, first tenet of teaching is tell them how to do it. Second, show them how to do it. They need to watch you do it. 3, have them do it while you're watching. And then give them feedback on what you saw. Tell them, show them, have them do it, give them feedback. It's that last two things is where many people get messed up. And that's where delegation often goes wrong. Most managers, when delegating, go with the flawed approach of not using all of these. They tell them, they may even show them, but they're not often watching them do it and giving them feedback. Number 4, especially, is left out. And that's where people get frustrated. Managers get frustrated. Employees get frustrated because they didn't get the feedback. They didn't know what right looked like because you left it out of the equation. So build in check-in time, build in feedback time all along the way. Don't wait to the end. That is really a crater you're going to create for yourself. Give your time for correction. Don't show your disappointment, and don't wait to the end to give feedback. At first sight, delegation can feel more like a hassle than it's worth. However, this is what I've found through many, many years of following the same process. I've done this. I've taught hundreds of other people how to do this. And the ones who choose to go adopt these mindsets, apply these best practices, become much better, effective leaders. So to delegate effectively, choose the right task to delegate, identify the best people, and support them. 1, 2, 3. The right task, the right people, and support. And this, for many people who want to get out of the rut you're in of stress, overwork, demotivated, burned out, you're already uncomfortable. This is going to make you more uncomfortable. But in order to learn anything, we've got to get uncomfortable. And like I said, I've been training this for years and know that it changes lives. And I've got the testimonials to prove it. This approach will help start the process of changing who runs you. And yes, it's going to require that sometimes you have to slow down to go fast. You have to look at it as an investment of your time and energy with the right person.
Productivity, winning strategies, and aligning employer-employee goals. If this sounds like something your business could use more of, then you've come to the right place. The Business Mechanic Show with your host, Vaughn Sigmund. Let Vaughn show you how to develop, improve, and jumpstart your business. So now, please welcome the host of The Business Mechanic, Vaughn Sigmund.
And in not too distant future, you're going to be running more quickly and operate with less stress and a clearer mind at work. You're going to be more focused. You're going to do a better job. You're going to make better decisions. You're going to be performing at a much higher level of your critical responsibilities. You may be even working less hours and spend way less time working in your business and begin working on your business. When you have too many tasks, you can quickly become distracted. Your focus can wane. And that's going to keep you from leading strategically. And I often tell managers who are perpetually putting out fires that this lack of strategic direction is how the fires start. It's the root cause of many of your grenades and fires. So learning to delegate responsibly when you have too much on your plate will help you avoid moving from fire to fire day after day. Great time managers discipline themselves against assuming more tasks than they can handle. And when they get too much on their plate, they recognize it and they delegate it to others whenever possible. And by delegating more, you're burning yourself out less and less. And what's a burnout manager worth to your company? Now, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that work really hard, but they're not working very smart. And if you want the reputation of being the hardest working person there, okay, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'd much rather be the best leader, the most effective person, the person that has the highest loyalty than the hardest worker. You do not want to create a culture and environment where the company is entirely or overly dependent on you. That's impossible to scale. You can't scale, the company can't scale when they're too dependent on one person. See it all the time. Every highly accomplished leader's goal is to make themselves dispensable. What do you think about that? You should be striving for a plan where your team does not have to have you, that you've created a self-supporting squad that if you were hit by a bus tomorrow, they would miss you, but nothing much would change at work. So begin laying off some of this work, and you will soon realize the win-win comes from focusing more of your energy on your team's development, reducing your workload, and then you're really contributing to the company's long-term growth. So that's it. Thanks for listening today. And please visit our website for more information on all of our training and coaching programs at rdltraining.com. That's Romeo Delta Lima training.com. And I'll talk to you all again real soon.